Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're going to take a look at the tier 10 cruisers and see which ones are my favorites going into 2026. We have 45 cruisers at tier 10 these days. So I'm going to be blitzing through this a little bit more than last time. I tried to keep it to a schedule and I rambled a little bit too much, as I tend to do about this game. So I'm going to try and not let this cross the hour mark. We'll see how I did towards the end of this. Actually, that's probably a terrible goal to have, as we have so many ships to cover, and there's a lot to say about each one of these. Real quick before we get started, as always with tier lists, it's going to be subjective, right? This is just my opinions. Comment down below whatever your favorite tier 10 cruisers are. Last time when we looked at battleships for 2026, there was a ton of great discussion down there. And I'm especially glad that that discussion happens without people getting all upset and throwing insults at one another. We got a really good community here. And just to pick out one little thing that was discussed last time, which I think is quite interesting, is how do you have an objective tier list, right? It's really difficult to do that. If you guys have any ideas, let me know. Of course, this is subjective because it's just me here sitting talking about my favorite ships. But if there is a way, perhaps I can figure that out and we can take a look at that another time. That'd be really hard to do because everybody has a unique opinion on the game. There are so many ships, there are so many options for playstyles. Someone will love a certain playstyle while not enjoying a different one, and vice versa, which is why I think it's so interesting to talk about. And I know a couple more things. Okay, I forgot to mention this. These aren't ordered within their tiers. There's just so many ships and so much to talk about that would balloon out the length of the video. So we're just going in general kind of alphabetical order here. And that is all. The tiers are ordered, but not within their tiers. As well as saying that I find the vast majority of ships playable at tier 10. Cruisers are a little different than battleships, where basically all of them are playable at worst. They're a solid ship. Cruisers have some pretty awkward ones, okay? And there will be some down in D tier that I just really don't think are all that playable. Also with cruisers is they're hard to play. I find them very rewarding personally. I actually really enjoy cruisers the vast majority of the time. But they're difficult, okay? They are more difficult, so don't be surprised if a ship that I enjoy might be insanely hard to play, and maybe that's why I enjoy it. With that said, let's jump in with Prince Adalbert here, a brand new tier 10 cruiser. This one is so interesting. My opinion, of course, can change on these things, but manual secondaries, it's so unique, guys. If you haven't at least got to the tier 8 on this line, you really owe it yourself to try it out. It is so interesting. And in fact, I really think this might be the closest approximation to something like Hawaii, which has released recently as well. Tanky hull and the secondaries form that F key role like we see on Hawaii, spamming out a ton of shells while still being quite a tanky battle cruiser hull. I like Prince Adalbert a lot these days. We'll see. This one could be just some recency bias though. Okay, editing PQ here with a quick little jump cut. We are going to put this down into A tier. I still love this ship. I think it's really fun, but recency bias has got a hold of me. I had to play it a little bit more to see if it was still S tier. It's not as powerful as these, okay? It's fun. It's up here because of that secondary gimmick. Honestly, a lot of these ships can move around for me depending on the day. But for Prince Adalbert, you have to get this to try out secondary builds. If you're at all into brawling battleships like me, you're going to love Prince Adalbert. It's definitely a line you should be trying. However, there's some S tier ships later on that this doesn't quite fit into for me. So we're going to leave it in A tier. It'll be fixed in the final tier list at the end, don't you worry. But for now, we're going to jump back to the original recording where it's still going to be up in S. It'll go back down though at the end, don't worry. And we're starting off real hot here too with Austin. I love this ship. Very unique, okay? You're gonna notice a theme here is that I love unique ships and playstyles. I think it's fun to have to play around a gimmick. I think it's really fun to have a ship that is not good the vast majority of the time, but then you click the reload booster on an Austin and it's absolutely ridiculous. This ship is so much fun. It is so interesting to play. It's very hard to play though. Perhaps a little more recency bias, but we'll take it with Bremen. It's so fun, guys, okay? The mines at tier 10 these days is absolutely hilarious. The DPM here is really, really good. You get 38 millimeters of pen on the HE, which is quite consistent overall. The shell velocity is a little lacking. Firing angles, especially kiting, can be a little awkward. 12-kilometer torps absolutely shocked me with this ship. Very useful, surprising a lot of people in choke points. I really enjoy Bremen, man. If I can get on a flank, get that AP rolling, it is such a good time. Okay, finally, we're going to start filling out a little bit lower tier, okay? Brennus is not one that I personally have enjoyed. It does not have a reload booster, and it does not have a hydro. It feels quite awkward to not have that, considering that is the French cruiser gimmick a lot of the time. This ship here, not really comfortable to push in with. It's a Henri hull, it's very large, easy to hit, 30 millimeters everywhere. Not very tanky in that regard these days. We have a lot of overmatch to deal with Brennus. The firing angles are really good, and the guns are very accurate. If you're playing Marseille and you find yourself a little frustrated with the battle cruiser dispersion, Brennus is interesting, and then it gives you cruiser dispersion with some of those larger guns. It's much more powerful than Henri in terms of its AP on some broadsides, but Henri's got a lot of extra DPM, and it's got that reload booster for that little bit of extra consistency here. I'm not the biggest fan of Brennus. I don't look to play Brennus really at all, unless you guys selected in ship request or something like that, or we're taking a look at a specific resource, for example. Now, Brisbane is very, very good, and maybe this is a great opportunity to talk about the difference between the cruisers at tier 10. A lot of the time, you're going to have cruisers that don't have a lot of utility. They don't have radars. They aren't going to contest caps that well in that regard. They rely on others to spot for them. And with that, I call them damage dealers or farming cruisers, right? That's their battle impact, is that they're dealing a lot of damage. The other side is if you have radars, if you have that utility you can provide to your team, utility ships, right? Those don't, in my opinion, have to deal as much damage to be as good as a damage dealer ship, because they bring that extra bit of utility that one of those farming cruisers doesn't. So Brisbane here, bringing a 12-kilometer radar is very, very good. It loses out on DPM compared to Minotaur, for example. Does not get a smoke, so it's a little bit uncomfortable to play. If you're used to radar minnow, good for you. You're very good at the game then. That's not an easy play style, okay? So Brisbane having that radar is really useful, but this ship tends to explode and can be, it's one of those ones that's a little hard to play, right? It is nice to have the HE though on Brisbane, where we don't have that on Minotaur. The torps here are also really good. Lots of range, lots of damage, great for zoning out a flank, and it's very difficult to push a well-played Brisbane. If you try and spot it with a destroyer, you pop radar, and then that destroyer's caught well within that radar range and probably taking the max duration of that radar. If you don't kill it, it's going to be low. And if that's not spotting you, then trying to push into it with a cruiser or a battleship, it might just torp you out. Brisbane is really, really interesting to play. And it's not one I'm gravitating towards a lot, so I'm going to still put it in B tier for me personally. This one could easily go a lot higher, though, if you're an enjoyer of that radar Minotaur playstyle and you want some extra torps alongside. Ah, Castilla. Why don't more people play Castilla? How many of those videos have I made? Maybe I gotta make another one, honestly, because I don't see this ship hardly ever, bro. It's so unfortunate for Castilla that it is not particularly maneuverable with a large 30mm armored hull, okay? That leads to a lot of overmatch. It's a ship that is very fun with its burst gimmick, but it loses out on DPM when you're bursting. So you're more inclined to just farm normally and then use your burst as an option when someone really gives you broadside. The AP here actually hits surprisingly hard, I gotta say. 254mm guns, I believe. A little bit of a strange one there. It does not get Napoli armor, even though it looks like the same hull. That is a key differentiator there. Castilla's not a bad ship. It's just okay in a sea of very, very powerful ships that Wargaming have released these days. So I think it makes sense why we don't see many Castillas. I am not personally interested in playing Castilla all that often, so I think that reasonably goes into C tier for me. It's not bad, it's just not as interesting. Cerberus here brings a lot of HE DPM. This thing can farm really, really, really well. It's got smoke screens, which is really, really fun to use. That crawling smoke is quite interesting. The gunpowder here is absolutely immense though, as is its citadel. This ship can absolutely get one shot very, very easily, even angled. It's a very large, easy to hit target I have found while playing it, even though that actual damage output is really, really good. A lot of the time, people are a little too far away, okay? This ship does not have the best shell velocity at range or range in general if you want to go for that DPM build. I found it a little tricky to play at tier 10, although To be fair, I haven't played it all that much recently, so this could be something I am personally just having a skill issue with or something, or maybe I need to play it more. It's not one I gravitate towards playing though, okay? And that really comes down to the playstyle. I am someone who is a little bit less interested in that smoked up HE spammer role. I would much rather play something like a Des Moines, which has a lot of HE, but then the AP is an option. Something that can play a little more aggressive, something that has a little more battle impact. As when you're smoked up, you need someone spotting for you. If you have a div, it's gonna be great, but it's hard to rely on random spotting, okay? It's not always going to be the most consistent in that regard. If you get it though, the DPM here is absolutely monstrous, and this ship could easily be in the power level of B, A, or even S tier as far as farming goes. It's very, very powerful in that regard. But again, for me, I'm not as interested in playing Cerberus personally, so that's where C tier for me. They're just kind of okay ships that I am not as interested in. What I am interested in, though, is Colbert. This is the perfect example of ridiculously challenging to play, extremely rewarding when you get it in that right position and you play it well. It's very, very, very hard to play, okay? You're not going to be John the Ruthless, okay? We must say that. No one is John the Ruthless in Colbert. You can have some games. I'll have games that are not as good as John's best games, but, you know, I can do some games that are around John's average game, I guess I would like to say. And it's really, really fun when I get that. However, it's hard, okay? Playing Colbert is playing a game on hard mode. It's like going into play Dark Souls instead of Mario or something like that. You know what you're getting into here. And sometimes that's the point, right? And I think Colbert is really interesting because of that. It's a unique ship, a unique playstyle, and it's very difficult, but very fun. And that's why I'm interested in it, okay? Brings something unique, very challenging, but very rewarding to play. For me personally, I really enjoy that. Now, what about something like Defense? Also a rather unique ship, right? We got large battle cruiser style guns, improved pen angles on them. Very interesting there. Although it's 6 guns, okay? We got the 6-gun debuff, at least in regards to PQ playing this ship. I am not a fan of Defense, okay? This is not one that I personally find enjoyable. The guns, when they work, are really, really good. When you get the opportunity to torp off your bow, it's really good. You get smokes, which are quite enjoyable to use. It's a very large, easy to hit citadel, though. I find this ship to be challenging to play well, I guess, because of that citadel, and that the 6 guns control from time to time. I'm not an enjoyer of 6 guns, so maybe this is too harsh to put it D tier. We'll tentatively put it there. Maybe I'll put it up a little bit more. I might be a little biased right now, as I played Siegfried for Ship Request this morning and had a very interesting time playing that one. So the 6 guns is fresh in my mind. It's certainly not one that I would want to play that often, though, so at most, for me, it goes into C tier. With Des Moines, we have a very interesting example of DPM farming cruiser that has utility, okay? This is what makes Des Moines special. This is why I love Des Moines, is I can play the farmer role. I can burn down battleships like the best of them. I can find a broadside cruiser or battleship and smash them with armor piercing, upper belt on battleships, cruisers. Yeah, the improved pen angles are no joke against cruisers. This ship is so wonderful to play if you can keep it alive and if you can get in range. It's challenging to play, certainly. I love it though, okay? Des Moines is easily one of my favorites to play in this game. Been playing it a lot recently. I'm trying to get some more of these E in every ship videos going. It takes a lot of work to do that one, certainly. Much more than a tier list where I'm just sitting here yapping for a little while. But it's a good time, okay? Des Moines is a really good time. Still highly would recommend people grind towards it if they haven't already. It's really, really fun. It's still hard to play though, okay? Cruisers are hard to play in this game. You got to be very alert, situational awareness, all that stuff. But Des Moines is so rewarding because you have that DPM to actually play the farming role, and you have that utility to play the cap contesting role. That ability to switch between both is so valuable. You feel like you are able to impact the battle in basically every match, outside of the pre-kited camp fests that we see at tier 10 these days. So not every battle, but the ones where you get to play the game, yes, Des Moines is one of my favorites in the game. And you know what? I think I've talked myself into it. I am putting Des Moines S tier. I know that's a hot take. I know. Okay, I know. But this is my list. This is my tier list. I'm putting it to there. I think Des Moines is awesome. Ooh, and we have Gibraltar. A ship that... I mean, the firing angles are so tough with this one. The AP only on this ship smashes destroyers and cruisers, though, okay? It's very slow shell velocity, but incredibly short fuses here and great pen angles. So you can dev strike destroyers with AP with this thing. It is very fun to do that. It's a hard ship to play, though, okay? I don't think Gibraltar is actually all that good, personally. I do not enjoy playing. It's a challenge ship that I don't enjoy playing. I guess we'll put it that way. I don't enjoy the challenge of this one. It is not an easy one to play. The AP really does chunk destroyers, though. That is the one benefit of this ship. And you get smokes, too, which is nice. But very, very large, easy to hit citadel if you're caught broadside. Surprisingly decent deck armor, I will say. That allows you to tank sometimes, but a larger superstructure, too. It is not my favorite, okay? And I will put it in D tier because I just am not a fan of Gibraltar overall. Goliath, however, brings us essentially Conqueror, but a heavy cruiser. The HE hits ridiculously hard on this one. It farms very, very well. You got good HE pen. It lives forever, okay? The ship with its super healing is quite tanky overall. Assuming you're not taking citadels, it's going to be very difficult to deal with a kiting Goliath on your flank. Its shell velocity is quite slow, however, so into the enemy team kiting and you have to push in your Goliath, it can be a little bit challenging. Surprisingly good AP here. If you get the right opportunity, the AP absolutely chunks. But mostly an HE farmer, I would say. I find the reload quite slow on this one. I would rather be in some other ships for farming. Perhaps I'm wanting to be a little more engaged than what Goliath takes. And if I want the slow reload, I'm probably playing more of a battle cruiser or battleship. That means Goliath is by no means a bad ship, though. This is a very solid tier 10 cruiser. I'm just not as interested in it. So maybe just the not as interesting tier for me personally. Don't worry, we're filling out more of these, okay? I'm going to try and have things be a little more balanced. We got a lot of good ships coming up, don't you worry. But I'm trying to have a little more balance than the battleship one, which was rather top heavy, I gotta say. Ah, Gouden, what am I to do with you? Where am I supposed to put you? A gimmick, an airstrike gimmick that I do not like. I wish was not in the game personally. A ship that has not the most accurate, but large caliber guns. A ship that has fast cooldown heals, allowing you to play a little more aggressive. Solid AA, allowing you to play a little more aggressive up on islands. But all in favor of, or all in service of that airstrike gimmick. Not a fan of that personally. Maybe I'll put it in B tier, I guess. Maybe we'll say airstrike at B tier. I don't know where I would want to put this one, as I just do not like airstrikes overall in the game. They can be funny to use. They feel a little busted. Gouden, though, in theory, has had a nerf with its legendary upgrades, so perhaps that is going to help it out. Maybe that allows it to be a bit more of a gun platform rather than push up and spam out airstrikes. Personally, I'm not as interested in something like the Gouden, so I'll just leave it in B tier. Seems reasonable. Oh my. And then Hawaii next. I mean, it's probably recency bias with some of these, but we're putting it up in S tier. It's so unique, guys, okay? This one plays like almost nothing else, okay? F key, you're basically a Colbert, except you're on a battle cruiser home. Yeah, you don't have insane armor to tank a ton of battleship salvos, but if you're not John the Ruthless, then Colbert often explodes to a couple battleship salvos, where at least Hawaii has close to an 80k HP pool that will allow you to eat several 10 to 15k salvos without being sent back to port. And that's why I think Hawaii is quite good for more average players, much easier to play than Colbert, and still giving you that insane close range DPM. And if it's a long range game where everybody's playing passive and your destroyer caliber light cruiser is, out of luck, you just click your F key with Hawaii and suddenly you have great shell velocity out to 18 kilometers. And by the way, you still get an 8.5 kilometer radar. Hawaii is very, very good. I think this ship is extremely fun. And over the course of December, where I was flip-flopping back and forth, if you have to choose one, Bremen or Hawaii, I think I've landed on Hawaii because it's more unique. Bremen is similar to Hindenburg playstyle, a more extreme version. But Hawaii, it's hard to find that playstyle. So S tier for me, pretty easy. I've been having a great time playing that ship. I think with Henri, I can really tell that this ship was released a long time ago. 30 millimeters of armor was really good back when Yamato and maybe Republic were the only ones that were overmatching you. A lot of 406 mil battleships. So being a massive hull wasn't such a bad thing then when you didn't have to worry as much about 457 overmatch. Nowadays though, yeah, there's a lot more of that. Henri also has pretty slow shell velocity, I gotta say. For its range and caliber of gun, pretty slow shell velocity, and that is a little more noticeable these days. The damage output is still quite solid. Having a reload booster is really fun, let's be honest. That is a fun consumable to have. Henri's just a little bit hard to play these days, and not just explode, okay? I've talked a little bit about Henri with Brennus, but these two ships kind of suffer from that problem of the instant you get spotted, which is pretty far range. A lot of battleships these days have similar or better detect than you, unfortunately. And you take a lot of damage. Exposed Citadel if you do get caught broadside, but it's fast, right? That engine boost on Brennus and Henri is quite valuable for flanking shots. Just got to play a little more passive with this one. The guns are still quite solid, especially at closer ranges. That reload boosted AP or reload booster high explosive to guarantee a fire after someone damage controls is quite nice still. I would pick a different ship though, personally, if I was wanting to play a farming role these days. If only to play this ship for nostalgic reasons, I guess, because it was such a monster back in the day. But these days, I'm not looking to play Henri all that often, so I think C tier is where I'm putting those ships. Okay, and I made a mistake last time with hybrids, okay, trying to be a little bit reasonable of, power level-wise. I am not interested in hybrid ships at all, guys, so hybrids in D tier. I personally don't like them. I don't like that they're in the game. I don't really enjoy playing them, so I'm just going to leave them in D tier. I understand the power level is way higher. I do. Aki, I do. Last video with battleships, but for me personally, and where I see these ships and where I want to play these ships, Hildebrand is not one of those. Hybrids are not those. Although to talk about it a little bit more than just that is that this ship has insanely fast cooldown on the Torpedo Squadron and then a slower cooldown on the Dive Bomber Squadron, which has a very accurate circle drop pattern, which means it doesn't matter what angle you approach from. The torps are also pretty fast, like the torp bombers, so you can do a ton of spotting for your team, as well as having essentially A-gear guns on the front with a faster reload. It's a very, very strong ship, okay? Don't get me wrong, it's very powerful. I just don't find it quite that interesting. Time for a classic, a comfy ship, a relaxing ship. It feels like home, you know? You walk in from a blizzard and you get some hot chocolate or something like that by the fire. Yes, Hindenburg, been in the game forever, and I think it's reasonable to say similar complaints to Henri as far as armor goes. However, Hindenburg has some trolley armor where it seems to just not get citadeled sometimes. Hindenburg also has, I find, a smaller profile, so it tends to get hit a little bit less. I also really enjoy Hindenburg guns. The AP on it is very satisfying into upper belts and, of course, into cruisers. Broadsides, the citadel damage is wild there. The HE allows you to actually pen over 50 millimeters, which is a key breakpoint on a lot of the most powerful battleships in the game, just because they often have 50 mil deck armor, and that allows them to shatter the vast majority of high explosive, the high DPM HE that burns down other battleships. Not so with Hindenburg. This one can get through a lot of that armor, which is extremely valuable. You'll find the guns to feel quite consistent, allowing you to use HE when everybody's angled, someone goes broadside, and you get some massive salvos. I've seen up to 14 or 15k salvos without citadels, just on broadsides. Very, very satisfying ship to play. It's a comfy ship for me, and that is perhaps for me personally. I really just enjoy Hindenburg. So maybe it's probably too high as far as power level is concerned, but for me, I love it. So I'm going to put it up in A tier. What does belong in A tier, though, is, of course, Incheon. Maybe even higher, honestly. Having Des Moines guns in a smoke cruiser with deep water torps, one of the pain points sometimes playing something like Des Moines is you don't have torps to deal with those YOLO rushes. Incheon has this. It also has smokes to deal with those very passive games on open water maps. Southside Okinawa, I'm looking at you. There's other bad examples, but that's one that's fresh in my mind. Smokes are incredibly useful. Of course, it does mean that you need spotting, right? That is not always the case. However, Incheon can easily play in more island cover or open water positions like a Des Moines. It's basically, without the radar, able to play the DPM version of Des Moines, which I really like. And crucially, you do get destroyer dispersion table here, not cruiser dispersion table. So very, very accurate main guns, even though the DPM values don't look similar to Des Moines, or not quite. You have much more shells on target, much more consistency thanks to that. I really like Incheon a lot. This is a very, very powerful cruiser at tier 10. Now, I think the obvious comp to Jinan has got to be Colbert, right? They're both light cruisers with destroyer guns, right? A lot of DPM there. Jinan is much easier to play, okay? It has a bunch of torps as well, allowing you to stall out flanks. Deep water torps here, you can dump out like 40 of them at once with the reload booster. It is wild how much torp power this has, alongside having Pan-Asian smokes. This is a key advantage of Pan-Asian ships is they're burstier than the American smokes, and because of that, it allows you to reposition sooner, but not so much like the British short burst smoke generators, like we see on Daring Line, for example, where you got to reposition a little bit too quickly sometimes for cruisers. The Pan-Asian smokes I find to be a nice middle ground, and Jinan is quite comfortable because of that. It's also got the Austin hull, where you have 32 mil side upper belt plating, meaning that at closer ranges, sometimes you can bounce some of that 457 mil AP. It's not reliable though, but every once in a while it can happen. Jinan for me is not quite as fun as Colbert, just because it's not quite as extreme, but it is a lot easier to play and extremely fun. It is also probably more powerful for the vast majority of people because those torps are insane. So you can easily stealth torp with this thing. You can push up on a lot of flanks because the concealment is also very good, especially if you get the enemy team pushing into you. It's the dream, okay? That's the dream Jinan gameplay. It doesn't happen very often though, because everybody knows how disgustingly powerful Jinan is kiting a flank out. Very good ship, well worth grinding towards if you haven't already. If you're interested in Colbert at all and you don't think you're quite good enough to play like John, which most of us aren't, then Jinan's calling, okay? Much easier to play with those smokes. A little worse on that DPM, but still very, very fun and solid ship at tier 10. Oh my, what do I even say about Kitakami? If you haven't seen this ship, it was released years ago and then removed, and actually removed from people's accounts, okay? This ship used to launch all of its torps at once. Like on a torp reload, you would get all 40 of its torps or however much it was, and well, it was pretty tough to play, okay? And tough to play against, rather. Nowadays, you reload one torp rack at a time. It's like 5 minutes to reload every single torp rack. It's interesting that you have the option to swap between deep waters and normal torpedoes, you know, less damage, a little less range, more speed on the normal torps. The deep waters though do a ton of damage to battleships and carriers. It's a floating citadel and it's not very impactful. It's a tier 4 hull, essentially. It's basically a Kuma stretched out for till more torp launchers. It's not very good, okay? It's a gimmick ship, certainly, and I don't think a very good one. And I, as you guys may or may not know, I'm not much of a torp boat player. I enjoy gunplay a lot more in this game. So for the gimmick to be very difficult, very situational, and torp focused, I don't have the most fun with this ship personally. It can be interesting to try from time to time, although for the most part, people don't have this one. So I'm not interested in taking it out all the time at all. And it's not a playstyle I enjoy. So D tier, maybe I'm trying to justify this too much. We should just move on. We have so many to get through. As for Komissar, we are in a hybrid ship. So good guns here, actually. Very solid main guns. A little squishy hull-wise, especially if you get caught broadside. Pretty good on a flank, certainly. But it's a hybrid, guys. I am not much of a hybrid enjoyer. So I am going to put it in the hybrids tier, okay? These are ships that I'm just not interested in at all. Komissar certainly fits that bill. The guns are actually very, very solid, though, on Komissar. Do not underestimate them. And maybe I'd be more interested in them if it didn't have the ability to launch planes, honestly. I probably would. But because it does, I just don't have any interest in playing them. I gotta be honest with you guys. It's like slightly improved pen angles on that AEP as well. Great shell velocity, solid damage as well. The guns are good, but it's a hybrid. So I'm gonna put it down in the hybrid tier for me. Ooh, and we have Kushiro. This one was the 10th anniversary reward ship. And It's basically Zhao with better torp angles and the smoke screens. You get like fuel smokes like off of Venezia line, that kind of thing. Very, very useful. Torp angles are way better than Zhao, but unfortunately for Kushiro is the guns are a lot worse. Okay, you got a big issue with dispersion. You don't get like the really improved dispersion like Zhao gets, as well as the shell velocity. Zhao over Ibuki gets massive shell velocity buffs. It's really, really valuable. Kushiro does not get that. It's like Ibuki shell arcs, unfortunately. So it makes it a lot harder to play. As a reward ship, I like it a lot. It's not overpowered. It's got an interesting gimmick with the smoke and the torps. It's not that inspired, though. For me, I'm not as much of an enjoyer of it. It's not one that I'm looking to play all that often. So I think that's C tier for me, right? That's kind of where C tier has landed. It's solid, but not as interesting for me personally. So we'll put it there. Admiral Lartigue here. We do have another hybrid ship, so we're putting in the hybrid category. This one's more interesting than Hildebrand, though. You get way longer cooldown on the skip bombers here, I believe, and compared to Hildebrand's torp bombers. So it's more focused on the main guns. And interestingly enough, you get cruiser dispersion on Marseille guns. And that is quite powerful. This ship also gets some 32mm flight deck armor, which allows you to get overmatched a little bit less than something like Hildebrand with its 30mm of deck armor. A little bit tankier, much stronger main guns, really fun. If you're interested in playing hybrids at all and you want more focus on main guns, well, you still have some planes here and there. This one is definitely one to look for. It's quite interesting because of that. However, I'm not terribly interested in playing hybrids, so put it down a D tier. Speaking of Marseille and its guns, here we go. Where does this ship go, guys? Battle cruiser dispersion. It's fast. It's got a reload booster. It's got okay armor. You're not taking point, okay? But on a flank, if you need to tank a little bit, certainly it can. The guns, when they hit, are quite good. This is one that I in the past have not enjoyed a lot, okay? But I probably should play it again with something like Outnumbered. Perhaps I would enjoy it a lot more. I found the inconsistency in the main guns to be a little bit annoying as far as the reload booster goes. Usually that adds some consistency. Didn't always find that, though, personally. The HE and the AP, though, are both very strong. High damage. The HE pens a lot. Good fire chance as well. High alpha damage. It's a solid ship. I know on paper it's a solid ship. In the past, I've just not been an enjoyer of it. This one certainly for me is less interesting. Okay, I'm gonna leave it in B tier. This one though could easily go up. For now though, I am fine with this being a very good cruiser that I just don't agree with. Doesn't sit right with me. Now, if you haven't played something like Minotaur before, you really owe it to yourself to try, okay? Hard to play light cruiser. You do have one of the most exposed citadels, easiest to hit citadels in the game. However, the AEP DPM here is quite monstrous. Amazing pen angles. You can choose between smoke and radar. That radar playstyle is very, very challenging, but it also is quite rewarding. Quite a bit of edge of your seat gameplay. If you're not going to get yourself a Colbert, this is also an example of very difficult to play, quite rewarding though when you do get the playstyle down. When it clicks with you, you're going to have a lot of fun with something like Minotaur. Not a ship I go to really all that often, but perhaps I should play more of it, honestly. It is a very, very good ship in the game. For me, though, I tend to not play this one. I'll tend to go for something like Colbert. The lack of HE is a key weak point here, as people angled to you are going to take massively reduced damage. A lot of battleships at range, kited away. You don't have that extra ability to burn them down, unfortunately. You catch a broadside, things are great. But that key downside of angled targets is a little bit unfortunate for Minotaur. It's still a very, very good ship and quite fun to play, though. So well worth recommending you go for it if you haven't seen it before, if you haven't played it before. But of course, it is very difficult, so keep that in mind. Go into it thinking, I am going to get dev-struck, and then you won't be surprised when you do, or that disappointed. Now, what about Monmouth? This is basically just Gibraltar with better guns for the most part, unless you're talking about destroyers. Way better shell velocity and range, allowing us to actually play in a lot of the tier 10 battles. Do miss out on a little bit of armor here, but you gain a super heal on this one, so that helps it to stay alive a lot longer. That extra range and shell velocity is a huge deal for how playable Monmouth feels in today's meta. AP only still on this one, and very unfortunate firing angles. You got to give a lot of broadside with this one. It is better than Gibraltar, in my opinion. It's still not particularly great overall. The guns hit very hard against cruisers and upper belt battleships, quite weak against destroyers thanks to that lack of fuse times that Gibraltar enjoys, allowing it to actually full Pandides. Here we're just going to get a lot of overmatch there. It's fine. It's a fine ship, not one that I am particularly interested in playing that much. Hey, another classic, Moskva! This brings back memories, man. This thing used to be the ultimate in cruiser, but a battleship, basically. The armor here was incredible. It was better than a lot of battleship armor back in the day, especially if you were angled. That 50 mil upper belt and deck armor was quite something. 12-kilometer radar here, accurate, insane shell velocity main guns. This one is much more consistent on the dispersion compared to something like Petro, okay? It's not as tanky, certainly. Way worse concealment. The concealment here is horrible, okay? But the guns are very, very nice to use. I love Moskva guns. Still, the radar is quite useful, lasts a lot longer than something like Petro, for example. It's also not as powerful on the main guns as something like Stalingrad, right? So if we're going for full AP at longer ranges, Stalingrad has you covered there. This one is more of an HE spammer a lot of the time, and then if someone goes broadside, then you can start to use the armor piercing. No improved pen angles here or anything like that. So more HE focused, but that shell velocity is not to be underestimated. It's so comfy to use Moskva guns. It's a very good ship. It's just been a little bit, I don't know, I don't want to say power crept, but it's a little hard to play, okay? You have battleship level concealment here. This is a case where it's worse concealed than most of the new battleships. And you have a very large exposed citadel. So if you get caught broadside, you're gonna have a bad time. If you're bow in, which is how you're often playing this ship, and you start to get overrun, there is no turning out and starting to kite, okay? You are going to explode if that happens. So very hard to position this one correctly, unfortunately. But still a very, very good ship. If you haven't had it already, it's a lot for coal. There's a lot of better coal ships probably to go for, but it's still a very interesting option, okay? I still think Moskva is quite good. It's an example of a ship that I would rather play this over something like Henri, right? The armor just allows it to play a lot more, and it still has the utility of a radar, okay? It's quite nice in that regard to have a 12-kilometer radar these days. A lot of islands support that. Even if you are playing further back, you can often reach pretty close to B caps and have a lot of battle impact that way. Oh, and Napoli. Where do we put this one, guys? I mean, secondary brawler cruiser archetype is not the most popular these days as far as what ships we have to offer. Although Prince Adalbert recently has perhaps taken this role. You don't have the smoke on a Prince Adalbert. Napoli also I find has just better armor overall. It's a very, very tanky ship. This is a hard ship to take down. That smoke is so useful. The sap secondaries hit very, very hard. Quite accurate overall there. Not manual secondaries, of course, so in fact, that's a good thing on Napoli. If they gave manual secondaries to Napoli, I think it would actually perform worse for a lot of people, because the 90 mil secondaries there have like orbital arcs, okay? Even worse than something like Atlanta. It would be impossible to lead them. The bots do it though, the computer does it, and so you still hit with it. You also get torps, of course. It is the ultimate in tier 10 brawling cruiser. I like Prince Adalbert a lot because you do get manual control, the newness of that, the gimmick. I really do enjoy that one. But if you want to brawl it all in a cruiser, Napoli is the one to pick. Okay, this thing is still incredible. It's very, very good. Well worth getting if you don't have it already. You want to play it in brawls, even in randoms. It's strong enough that it can survive pushing in randoms thanks to that smoke screen. Very fun to play around with a smoke that follows you at top speed. In a very similar vein to something like Des Moines, we have Nevsky that has DPM. It has great main guns. The shell velocity here is wonderful, allowing you to very easily hit targets at range. You get a 12-kilometer radar here. So DPM archetype, a little bit, not quite as good as Des Moines at that DPM, but maybe more effective DPM at range, certainly a lot easier to hit something, as well as utility-focused cruiser. Nevsky's really powerful for that reason. The AP here is quite solid. I know it says dispersion is cruiser dispersion in like the soft stats that are hidden. Wargaming, please add this to port so that we can see it in game. But I find the dispersion to be a little awkward. It feels like it doesn't have full cruiser dispersion. I don't know what's up with that. Perhaps it's the shell velocity that makes it feel like that sometimes, but it can be a little bit awkward in that regard. but very, very solid guns when they do hit. The AP is surprisingly good for 180 millimeter guns. It hits a lot harder than you think. Good pen as well. And the HE, I mean, shell velocity plus 12 kilometer radar means destroyers are having a bad time around you. It's really, really nice to have that extra ability to deal with caps, deal with destroyers, as well as burn down battleships, smash broadside cruisers, anything like that. Nevsky is quite a good utility cruiser, if you can keep it alive, of course. It's quite large, not the best maneuverability or armor. Get caught broadside, this one does have a citadel as well. More Soviet tier 10 cruisers. Petro? For me, I think maybe I'll leave it A tier, although Petro has a lot of armor. And it's got great conceal still, even after they nerfed it. It's got the radar utility. This one, though, is less focused on DPM. It's more focused on just all-out armor-piercing firepower. You catch cruisers broadside or even somewhat angled, the AP is absolutely crazy, especially closer ranges. This one has a separate dispersion curve than normal ships. So at close range, it's way more accurate than the average cruiser is, okay? But as soon as you get to 11 to 14 kilometers, somewhere in there, it drops off sharply and becomes way worse than normal cruisers at longer ranges. This is a ship that you got to play close. The kit allows you to play pretty close, though. 12 kilometer radar alongside very solid armor. It's a very low profile. It's quite well concealed, especially compared to Moskva. The comparison there. The radar doesn't last as long. It's a little more awkward at long range dispersion than Moskva, but improved pan angles on that AP is so nice to have, I gotta say. You also get 360 turrets. Turret traverse is very slow here, but it doesn't feel so bad because of those 360 turrets. This is one well worth grinding out as well, okay? If you haven't already, it's well worth grinding out. It's not a brawler like Napoli, but it is an aggressive cap contester pushing ship that can absolutely smash a flank. You catch a few broadsides, it's lights out for the enemy team. It feels really good to play Petro. What I'm a little less interested in is Plymouth. However, if you're a Minotaur enjoyer and you want the comfort of having smoke and radar at the same time while retaining the guns that allow you to smash broadsides, but even have really, really good pen angles, Plymouth is an interesting option. Smoke plus radar combo. No HE here, but AP only, much like Minotaur. You don't get the DPM of a Minotaur, so maybe you're lacking some of that enjoyment, unfortunately. But that utility combo, right? This is less of a damage dealer cruiser. It is more of that utility cruiser, right? There's kind of two different archetypes. You see what I'm saying here as we're going through? Wow, we still have so many ships to go, by the way. But this one is certainly in that support archetype, I guess we could say. I find myself wanting to have a little more direct battle impact with my guns, so I'm a little bit less of a Plymouth enjoyer. It is still a very good ship, though, and even though it's not for me necessarily, I think a lot of you would enjoy this one, especially if you're in a div or something like that. Having that smoke plus radar combo is really, really useful. Ooh, and we now have Prince Van Oranje. This is 2024's Steel event ship, not come back yet. And that's quite unfortunate because I like it a lot better than Gouden. Okay, this is like, hey, let's not make it so insane on DPM from the airstrikes to the point where you can just sit on an island, never use your main guns like Gouden. This one has very good main guns. Got cruiser dispersion on these 234 millimeter guns, I believe. Great range, great shell velocity, great DPM. Sets a ton of fires. I really enjoy the guns on this one. And you get the 15 kilometer range airstrikes as well on this one. Harder to lead, of course. They do, they take a while to drop, which is a good thing. I actually like it a lot more because of that. Do I like it enough to put it up with A tier ships? I might. The gimmick is kind of holding it back. I still just I don't like airstrikes in this game, guys. I really don't. I'll tentatively put it in A tier, okay? Just because this is the direction I want to see. If we have to have these annoying airstrike gimmicks, I want to see it be a minor element of the ship, not the entire gimmick, the entire point of the ship. This thing is great as a gun platform that happens to have airstrikes. Now, Puerto Rico is an interesting one as it's a tier 10 Alaska, which Alaska is one of the best tier 9s in the game. Very powerful, great utility, surprisingly tanky. You don't want to be, you know, like a full battleship trying to tank the enemy. Puerto Rico gains a whole turret, right? It gains a lot of HP. Unfortunately, it loses some reload, and crucially, you go down a dispersion table. So instead of battle cruiser dispersion, we have battleship dispersion table. And that means shells on target is pretty similar to Alaska. Just because the dispersion is a lot worse. The extra turret kind of makes up for that, but it kind of comes out in the wash. It's pretty similar feeling at a higher tier. The armor, though, is better on this one, so you don't have to worry as much about some of the overmatch. It can still die rather quickly if it gets caught out. However, a big point in Puerto Rico's favor is its high sigma value. That's the tendency for the shells to go towards the center of your dispersion ellipse, which means if you proc outnumbered on this one, it has a massive impact. This might be too high. I've had good games in Puerto Rico recently. I think Puerto Rico I'll leave in C tier. It's not a D tier ship. Okay, it's better than that these days. I've had some good times in it, certainly. But I think that dispersion issue holds it back, right? It's interesting to have the tier 9 be very similar feeling in gunpowder simply because the dispersion got so much worse when you added a turret. Think about it. When we go from Iowa to Montana, we keep the same dispersion, we add a turret, right? Now Alaska is easily one of the stronger tier 9s, so maybe that's why they didn't. But it feels a little awkward for poor Puerto Rico here. Radar utility, very nice to have. A tanky radar sometimes is what's necessary, not just a hidden Des Moines on an island. Sometimes you got to eat a few hits before you get into a good position or something like that. So it's nice to have that as well. I think I'll leave it C tier for now. We've already talked a lot about Des Moines and how much I love Des Moines. Salem is essentially the same ship, okay? So I'm not going to go over too much. I'm going to talk more about the difference Salem brings to Des Moines and why it's worse, okay? Hot take? Nah, probably not a hot take, let's be honest. Super heal sounds great on paper. Unfortunately for Salem, it does not heal much pen damage back. This is the reason that Valparaiso is so terrifying. It heals 85% pen damage. So basically none of the damage you're dealing is permanent, and that's why the super heal just goes on forever. Salem is not like that. It's the opposite, in fact, where the pen damage sticks. And so after you've healed 2 super heals, your third one is not healing you back the full value of what that heal potentially could do. Unless you ram someone or you are exclusively burning. Those are the only ways that I've ever seen Salem 3rd and 4th super heals actually get their full value. Otherwise, there's just too much permanent damage to your ship that you can't heal back. It's not like a Minotaur even in that regard. So quite unfortunate for Salem. The burst damage it can heal is useful. That is a useful utility. The overall healing ability is maybe a little better than Des Moines, but not that much. And what do you lose for that? You lose out on the 10-kilometer radar. You also only have an 8.5-kilometer radar, which is fine. It's fine. I believe it's also in the same slot as Hydro now, so you can't take Hydro radar either. Bit of a downside there. It's not quite as good as Des Moines. If you're playing like full silly lighthouse, which is to say take everything you can to make your concealment worse and then take the situational skills that when you're spotted or something like that, or there's enemies within your detection circle, you get extra DPM. That's the lighthouse build. Salem actually works pretty good for that because typically you're taking a lot of burst damage in that regard. And the super heal can be valuable there. So for me, I like Salem, I like Des Moines. I like Des Moines more, but if I'm trying to play a silly damage lighthouse build, I'll send it over on Salem and see how it goes there. Ooh, and speaking of Valparaiso, Pan-American ship here, we have San Martin. Similar gimmick, right? Where F key gives you back your consumables quickly. Although Valparaiso gets normal cooldowns on its consumables. Martin is like 2 or 3x longer than normal. And you need to be using your F key to actually get those consumables back. It's an interesting playstyle. AP only is a little unfortunate. We do have utility with our radar. Being able to get through radars very quickly is quite interesting as well, thanks to that F key. Situationally, very powerful. You get into the wrong situation though, wow, is this ship weak. AP only, not the best pen angles on that AP, as well as not short fuses. So anytime you're radaring a destroyer, you're oftentimes overpenning, unless they're at the perfect angle or they're like a massive destroyer like an Elbing. Even then, I've overpenned broadside Elbings at medium ranges before. It's hard to make use of that battle impact. Very tanky, surprisingly tanky, I would say. If you're cycling through those F keys, you can be bit of a cockroach on a flank, right? Hard to dig out. A bit of that Goliath feeling on this one. We get torps here as well, allowing us to play a bit of a kited role on a enemy pushing flank, that kind of thing. It's not the easiest ship to play. It's a very interesting line. I really do think so, but you can tell that this Tech Tree one did not get overtuned when compared to something like Valparaiso. Pretty big difference in the power level of that F key and consumables. Okay, fresh in my mind is Siegfried and 6 guns, guys. I am not a Sevastopol enjoyer. I am not. No, that is not me. I think it goes into D tier for sure for me. It's got some weird consumables giving you long duration healing, but for not too much at a time. Overall, I think it's actually a negative on your consumables to have that long duration heal, because getting to your next one takes forever, right? A lot of other ships are getting 2 or 3 heals by the time you get through one and your next one is available to you. Does have an engine boost, surprisingly accurate sometimes, main guns when it wants to. Okay. I don't find 6 gun ships to be that consistent, okay? In theory, I get it. It's not for me, okay? The armor here is not amazing either. It's decent conceal though, I will give it that, but Sevastopol is really not for me, guys. I do not like it. Oh, Smolensk though. Where do we put Smolensk these days? This ship was so nuts when it came out, but I feel like, is Jinan just better? Like, Tech Tree ship just better now? It's been buffed enough? Certainly fires per minute is way higher on Jinan. Worse shell velocity. Something Smolensk does have still is its great shell velocity. Doesn't have the torp power of something like Jinan. Maybe it's a little worse than Jinan. I got weird. Interesting. I would rather play Colbert over Smolensk as well. Like if we're talking about the premium light cruiser things, like destroyer gun things. I enjoy Colbert a lot more. Again, it's harder to play. Smolensk is still a very strong ship, guys, okay? I don't find myself looking to play it that often. It doesn't have very much armor, but in fact, that's usually a good thing, as you often will get overpenned with this ship. Unless it's Colombo, then the sap will just full pen Citadel you guaranteed. That's a scary one that's been around more recently. A little bit less so when Smolensk was initially released. This ship used to have insane range as well, so the DPM is a little misleading if you look at secondary charts for DPM comparisons between tier 10s. Something to keep in mind here is that Smolensk often needs to run range mod because it does not have great built-in range, and it can use it actually because of its shell velocity. Where Colbert, it's a little harder to use range mod, so you sometimes will go reload on that one. But if we compare Smolensk to Jinan, Smolensk uses range mod to get similar range. Jinan can just go for reload mod. It's an interesting thing there that usually we see the same consumables used over and over again. Brett, I'm talking too long about this. We got a video. Oh, am I getting to be an hour now? It's over an hour on my OBS. Oh no. Smolensk is decent though. Okay, Smolensk is still very, very good farmer. I would play some of these other destroyer caliber light cruisers before Smolensk though. Oh, Stalingrad. I like this ship a lot, guys. Having extremely accurate battle cruiser guns with improved shell velocity, with improved shell or AP pen angles as well. You still get a 12-kilometer radar here. Vulnerable Citadel can get burned down very easily these days as well. But wow, the guns hit so hard. Okay, this one is a battle cruiser that legitimately feels like you're playing a battleship. Okay, but more accurate. Good, better reload than battleships too. This thing is really good. It's hard to play now though, compared to what it used to be. This thing used to just be a better battleship. Nowadays though, you really feel the difference where we don't have fire prevention anymore. We also feel the difference where this ship is oftentimes going to get farmed down as it's trying to get into a good position. Maybe you got to play it pre-kited these days. Maybe that's a little bit safer. Much like Moskva, already mentioned, but worth mentioning again. Similar idea on the hull where you got battleship conceal, and if you get caught bow in somewhere, there is no turning away from a bad situation by going dark and then using that opportunity to turn. You're just going to stay spotted. And if you do try that turn, yeah, you're getting Citadel. A lot of HP, so maybe you survive it. Unlikely, though, okay? Stalingrad gets absolutely smashed into its broadside. But the guns are amazing, okay? The guns are some of the best in the game still. Very, very satisfying to use. And we have another utility cruiser here. Svea, especially in like a div or something like that, it's a monster, okay? This ship, cap contester, cap denial. How do you deal with this? Okay, it's smoke, it's radar, it's accurate enough HE. It's a very difficult ship to deal with. Surprisingly decent armor as well. A lot of the cruisers and battle cruisers actually aren't overmatching you here, thanks to not being like Minotaur armor on its extremities. It's actually like normal cruiser armor. It lacks in some DPM though elements, so if you really do get rushed on a flank, certainly it's not going to farm down battleships that quickly. It's much more focused on cap contest, cap denial, impacting the DD engagement. Because of that, high battle impact, but lower on the DPM side if you have to do that. More of a utility ship. I think Svea is great still, to be honest with you. I really do. I don't find myself picking it that often because I'm a little greedy. Maybe, perhaps I want to see those big damage numbers. I think if you play any sort of competitive mode, Svea is like a must get. I gotta say, I haven't played competitive in over 5 years now, but it's a very good ship for that role. Cap contesting at all. In a div, that kind of thing. Very, very good ship. More airstrikes with Utrecht, guys. Where do I put this? I think I put it in B tier, okay? Hear me out. We put Gouden in B tier because it's airstrike focused with some main guns. Utrecht has surprisingly good main guns, but it's very airstrike focused still. And because of that, I don't want to play it as much. I don't like using these crazy gimmicks with planes. It's very powerful though. Power level wise, it goes higher than this, okay? For me personally though, I don't want to play Utrecht that much, okay? I'm surprised they gave it as much range as they did and the shell velocity, okay? Remember, these are destroyer guns on Utrecht. They also have the 32 mil pen on the AHE, and the range is better than a lot of cruisers that have 150 millimeter main guns, even some with 203s, and better shell velocity than them too. They've given it a lot there. It can explode from time to time when it gets caught broadside, which is good to have, but very, very difficult ship, very annoying ship, okay? Maybe it's that I've fought against it so much, but man, the absolute spam that the airstrikes are on this thing. The cooldown was so ridiculous. They did nerf it, I know, but it's still such fast cooldown. Longer range airstrikes as well. It's annoying. I find it annoying, and I don't want to put it much higher. I'm sorry, okay? If I was trying to do objective or whatever, it would go up, but it's my list. It's subjective. Tier lists are always going to be subjective, I think. So I'm going to tell you my opinion. You're here for my opinion, right? So I'm not as big of a fan, but it is strong. Okay, wait, I want to rant a little more. How did we not get a German light cruiser line? And instead, they just moved the German gun turrets and the German light cruisers over to the Dutch line. Okay? Isn't that sad? Okay, anyways, onwards. Venezia. Venezia is very powerful. The sap is a gimmick I also think is not very good for the game. But Ven is pretty satisfying, okay? Maybe it's, I don't know. It's surface ship, it's guns, okay? Maybe that's my excuse for why it's more okay. Oh man, I might not be the most consistent when it comes to these gimmicks and whether or not I stand on morals or anything like that. I'm sorry, Caught, I'm sorry. But Ven and its sap, you smash destroyers. You have fuel smokes to play very aggressive and turn away without getting absolutely smashed. You are surprisingly maneuverable. The ship has crazy turning circle radius, so it is actually very difficult to hit at longer ranges, certainly. And lots of guns. The sap hits very hard. The AP can do pretty good work into cruisers, especially at medium ranges, but you should be shooting mostly sap with this one. At longer ranges, it is still very accurate, reasonable shell velocity, quite easy to use in that regard. No utility, right? No utility here, no radars, anything like that. But what you do have is the ability to one-shot destroyers on the opening engagement if you push up with your friendly DD, which is great utility in itself. That way you don't need the radar. Ven is very strong still. Sap is an extremely powerful gimmick. If you haven't played it, could be worth looking into. I don't play Ven that often, but you know, we'll talk about it a bit with Zhao, but that was kind of originally Zhao's role, which was that massive salvo into the destroyer, not DPM, but alpha strike, that HE alpha strike that Zhao would give to the enemy DD could impact the entire rest of the battle. Ven is that, but even better is what it comes down to. Now here's another one where I think I am very different from what other people think. I like Worcester a lot. I'm a Worcester enjoyer. Not quite as much as Des Moines, simply because the AP. Okay, Worcester has the HE DPM for days. It's got utility for days, better conceal than Des Moines, for example. The problem with Worcester, I find, is that I don't get to enjoy the swap over to armor piercing and have the improved pen angle Des Moines AP. That's really what it comes down to. They play fairly similarly. I think Worcester is still a very, very good tier 10 cruiser. I think the utility it brings is awesome. I think its ability to farm is very, very good too. It burns down battleships extremely well, in my opinion. I have always enjoyed Worcester ever since it came out, and I still do. I still think this is a great ship. I tend to play Des Moines more, though. Like I said, I want that AP to be an option for me. Des Moines might be one of my favorite ships in the game, though. Okay, so I'm a little... it's very subjective here, but I still really enjoy Worcester. The utility, I love that you have so many consumables as well. You're not really having to forcibly choose between things like hydro, radar, defensive fire, things like that. Your AA, in theory, is enough to prevent carriers from striking at you, which is also quite nice. You're not going to be their first target, so you can help your team out that way on your flank as well. Very, very good at cap contesting, helping your destroyers. Very, very good in a div. I think Worcester is really solid overall, so I'm going to put an A tier. Now, what about Yodo? What do we do with Yodo? A ship that was over-nerfed, probably, because everyone was freaking out over 18 guns, light cruiser guns, like the 105s. It's going to burn down battleships instantly. And then it just has negative DPM and shell velocity. It's not great, guys. Yodo is not a great ship, unfortunately. The torp angles are fun. The range is fun. I don't find people push into my Yodo that often. Maybe I just am bad with torps, okay? Caught. You got me. I actually kind of suck with torps. So maybe that's why I don't get the most value out of Yodo. But it's not a great ship, guys, unfortunately. Light cruiser line for Japan is quite interesting. The torp angles are really nice and usable. Surprisingly good HP here, more HP than Zhao. And not the best armor. It's quite large as well. Decent conceal, though. It can do some decent damage, though, okay? You get the right flank that's a slow push. The extra range is nice when people are playing bow-in stationary roles. At long range, when they're maneuvering, though, it's very, very hard to land shells, I have found. 360 turrets with fast, very fast turret traverse is quite nice if you're used to something like Zhao, for example. Very slow turret traverse there. It's got some nice convenience elements, but in where it matters for me, which is kind of the damage dealing of the main guns, that consistency, it's a little lacking. So I'm going to leave it in C tier for now. All right, we're coming down to the wire now. I think I've done a pretty good job of actually balancing out the tiers. My battleship list was way too top heavy. Here we're pretty good. We're pretty reasonable, I think. Yoshino, we should put this one probably in C tier. The guns are very powerful. Long range, good shell velocity, decent reload, high pen, high damage. Not good armor on this one. You do get 30 everywhere, which is decent. Long range torps, which is all right. It's a less interesting version of, like, I don't know, battle cruiser, long range battle cruiser farming role. It is quite comfy, though, I will say, as an option to play if you're just frustrated with the way all your battleships are playing and camping at the back of the map, and you're trying to play a cruiser, and you push up, and of course, you're 5 kilometers closer than all of your team, and of course, you're going to get singled out because of that. Yoshino provides you an option to sit back there with your battleships and still play a cruiser, and have that HE farming potential. The guns are good. The AP into broadsides is very good as well, and it's just a little boring. It's honestly not a bad ship. Its power level is not that low, okay? I should probably put it up if I was doing power level stuff, but for me to play it, it's a little bit too boring for me, okay? So I don't enjoy it as much. And last, we got ourselves Zhao, a classic. Less comfy classic than Hindenburg, but a classic all the same. So I think we'll round out B tier with that. Look at that. We've got ourselves a pretty well-balanced chart, I gotta say. It is a very solid HE farmer. Poor firing angles hold Zhao back. Its health pool holds it back. The torp firing angles really hold it back as well. Concealment's very good here. as well as the dispersion. Okay, I think you get destroyer dispersion table here with Zhao with great shell velocity. So you had that old Ven roll before Venezia was released of pushing up to a cap with your friendly destroyer. They get into their engagement and you just crush an enemy DD. It was very good at that. Still very good at that. Not quite so when Ven is on the table. However, you do have better concealment to push up a little closer than Venezia does have. You reload a little sooner, so maybe you get the second salvo in, where Venezia may not. Zhao is fine. Zhao is not that powerful these days, but it's still just a fine cruiser. And I do enjoy the DD dispersion element of it. The AP is very good into broadside cruisers, guys. The dispersion, the shell velocity, and the pen you gain from that is a bit of a surprise sometimes. So try to use some AP on your Zhao if you haven't been recently. And that's about it for the tier list for 2026. PQ's picks for tier 10 cruisers. Welcome back, those of you using the timestamps. Insert reused joke about making fun of you, and then I use timestamps, so welcome back. They're intended to be used. This is my list. I am reasonably happy with it as of right now. Some things may change, of course. As always, remember, it's all very subjective, right? I don't know how to do an objective tier list because these are my opinions on this YouTube channel. I would not say that I am a very objective person. I'm telling you my perspective, and this is my perspective. Ships I'm having fun with, ships that I think are good, ships I like to play, or at the bottom, ships that I do not want to play. Very, very good though. I am glad that I made this one a little bit more balanced versus the top heavy battleship list. And honestly, most of these cruisers are pretty solid, okay? There's not a lot of unplayable ships in World of Warships. Some, okay, things like Kitakami, I would probably say are pretty unplayable. It's very hard, okay, at any rate. But overall, I think a lot of these cruisers can excel in the right situation. But let's remember, cruisers are just a hard class to play. Compared to battleships, very difficult. Exposed citadels, worse range, worse armor, high DPM, but that means you're probably exposed, spotted, getting shot at more. And with your lower HP pool, you're going to die a lot sooner. To get value out of their radars, you got to push up more. It's a harder class to play, but I find it very satisfying. And I really do enjoy cruisers overall in this game. And these are some of my favorites. But of course, let me know your favorites in the comments down below. Again, I just gotta say, thank you guys for having some normal, civilized discussions on the internet in my comments. I love that. I'm so happy that my comment section is like that. I really, really do appreciate it. Let me know your favorite cruisers, which ones you like yourself. And I think that's going to do it for today's video. My favorite cruisers going into 2026. Here it is. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching and have a great rest of your day.